What's up, my friends? How are you? Sharing some good old times when I used to live in Athol, Massachusetts. If anybody knows where that is, because we had some really, really strange times. All right, so back when the day I had bought a house in Athol, and very interesting time. So, the one time I was redoing my porch, sweeping up, kind of taking off the old shingles in the place, running around, doing little housey stuff. And all of a sudden, if you ever saw back in the 70s the movie The Warriors, a group of kids, probably had to be about two to 300 kids, and all punk rock kids. You do whatever you want, that's great. But a little sleepy town like this on a side road, and it was a dead end too. I have no idea where these kids came from. But I'm sweeping, and all of a sudden, you got, just picture punk rock kids. 2-foot mohawks, purple mohawks, blue mohawks, red mohawks, spiked hair, the cufflinks, the spikes, an array of every type of punk rock type of thing. It was almost as if 2 or 3 truckload of buses dropped these kids off, and they come walking down the street of my street. This is a weekend, so I just kind of put my hand on my broom, and I watch everybody walk by. Now again, at the end of the road, there is no end to the road. It stops and it goes into the woods. Now, I've walked by it a couple times. I never, because my buddy lived down there, and I really never, it dropped down to an embankment, and I don't know where else it went. But they had to know, because they filtered down, and it was like something out of a movie. Hundreds of kids, punk rock kids, to all the typical looks. Like I said, they didn't do anything, nothing at all. And they just kind of look at you, just kind of, wow, where did you guys come from? Made their way. It was like something out of a movie. It was really bizarre. That was just one story. No problem, nothing happened. Another story. Now, I'm not saying the neighbors was a girl and a guy that they lived there, I think, part-time, across the street from me. They had this pit bull that always got out. I love dogs, you know me. Had my Newfie. This pit bull always got out. And it would run around the street, and they went out like they would be gone for 2 or 3 days. It was a young couple. I have no idea what happened with them. And then it would run around, and I'm on my porch. Not happen all the same day. These are different days. All of a sudden, I don't know if the kid it was like a kid in 20s or something. He must have got caught doing house-to-house sales or something. Well, the pit bull is chasing him. So, of course, he's avoiding it. I see him. I open the door real quick. He jumps on the porch, and the pit bull can't get up. Well, I had one of those front porches that the screen door was intact, but the windows were out. And it was probably high, just high enough, so the pit bull, was trying to get in, but he couldn't get up that high. It was a smaller dog. I had some pipe. I was cleaning out the house. So, like I said, I love dogs, but I got to protect myself. So every time the pit bull would jump up, I'd take a pipe and try to give him a whack. And I was like, hey, try to calm the dog down. I really wasn't trying to hit him. I was just trying to scare him and just get the hell out of here. So he got off away from us, and me, and it's like 10 minutes, I start to talk to this guy, and I was like, well, what are you going to do? You going to stay here or what? And because it was, the dog was still running around, he went someplace else, and I handed him a pipe. And I go, you got to get out of here. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know where his car was. I wasn't asking too many questions. And I gave him the pipe, and he starts running. And I was like, shh, don't really run because the dog's going to hear you. He's going to come flying after you. At least you got the pipe if you're going to protect yourself. The idiot gets halfway down the street, and he throws the pipe. Like, do you think the dog's going to stop? I don't know what happened. I forgot. He must have got out because the pit bull's running around, and it must have killed the cat 'cause it brought back some kind of body of something it was killing or whatever, and dropped it at his home. So he was preoccupied with that. And it was pretty sad because that street wasn't much for... I wouldn't suggest anybody living on that street at the time. And but anyways, so I think I ended up calling the police. I said, hey, you got a pit bull chasing people down the street. No one can leave their house because this thing's running around like a nut. Do you know the cops never came down? Unbelievable. I was like, really? Unbelievable. I almost want to call again, but I said, well, I'm not leaving. If I have to, you take them out, whatever. If he actually attacks you or something. But whatever, I just let it go. So another couple of days, or it might have been a week, we had great neighbors. And this is one of those things. I was there for about, I don't know, a year at this house. And all of a sudden I notice a lady and her sons move into the house across from me diagonal. And I was the only one in my house. And I would notice cars all times of the day, well, I shouldn't say day, all times of the night. We all know what that means. Cars would pull in, drive up to the back, 5 minutes later, pull back out and leave. Every 10 minutes. To me, that sounds like they're dealing drugs. That's all there is to it. Wow, okay. Again, on the phone. And I'm trying to make a go at this. This is my very first house. I said, what the heck did I move into? Unbelievable. So, I actually went down. They didn't come down. I went down to the police station. And I said, hey, this is going on night after night, week after week. I don't want this thing turning into a huge problem because no one's coming down to check this thing out. They didn't give me much information, only because I was thinking maybe they had it under surveillance. They really didn't know who I was. I said, I'm the neighbor across the street. I'm not going to give you my name because I don't want some idiot saying, oh yeah, so-and-so told you were dealing drugs or something. So I said, whatever. You really can't trust them. So anyways, that never got resolved until one day they were gone. I don't know what happened. People didn't last on this street. It was one of those 1890 houses, and the street would kind of grab stuff, all one families, and it was low, not low price, but just wasn't a great area. So beware where you buy your house. So these people just left. And before they left, I was actually moving out. Because they left right after me. Because me and my sister were unloading my house because I was going to turn it into a rental. And that didn't work out so good, but that's another story. As I'm loading stuff, I noticed I'm bringing stuff out to the house to the U-Haul, and she would come back in, and all our stuff was in an open truck. And I told my sister, why don't one of us stay out there? Because the lady's out front, and I told her what was going on. I just don't trust her. Wouldn't you know it? Now, she lived on a little down the street on the opposite side. Okay? And I was right. Because without them seeing, I made sure you bring something in, you stay at the truck while someone else brings something down, and then they switch, and back and forth as we're loading up the truck to move. And wouldn't you know it, this lady comes across the street and walks down our sidewalk. And of course, I was coming out and she looked right in the back of that truck, and I said, see, my intuition was right, because that lady, who knows what she would have taken. If my sister wasn't in that truck just looking down, she could have just set herself up just to pass the truck and grab anything and anything. Who knows? And that's it. We never would have known, probably. So intuition, following your intuition. And like I said, I'm just telling you some stories that happened to me, because sometimes I have an interesting life. So the dog, this all happened on the same street. The lady who was selling drugs, the punk rock group that came down the street, that was pretty wild, and the pit bull that was always loose. I'm trying to think what else was. It was a really interesting street. There was a couple of fires 2 blocks away, so I had to get out and see what's going on there. That was a little interesting. I got friendly with buddy with the guy down the street, and where the punk rock kids disappeared into the woods, he would tell me, because the edge of his property was like a circle, and the edge of his property went down for drainage, and it was down a hill, and it was like a clearing. And I remember him telling me that he set up like a bench or something, and he would go down and get high or drink, and it was a little river or something going down there, and he would just relax. And I kept saying, I wonder if that's where they went, but I don't remember hearing any noise. I'm talking, like I said, there were 200 or 300 punk rock kids, and I said, how and where they disappeared, I'll never know, because they just kind of took up the whole street. It was a small street, but still, walking down the street, they funneled in between someone's yard, and they disappeared into the woods. So they obviously knew where they were going, and I never heard anything about that again. But other interesting, Athol was one of those places that there was usually 1 or 2 abandoned or drugged out or fire burned houses that made for good resale opportunity. If someone like me, I was trying to get, my house is just old, the people happen to die off, the mother died, and the older son just wanted to get rid of it, so I took it. But it was one of those places that I wouldn't recommend living, that's for sure. I don't know what it's like now. I hope Athol, Mass is a lot better, but it was shady, that's for sure. And I'm just sharing my story. I said maybe these guys will be interested in a couple of interesting stories from the kids' past. And that was my house at Athol, Mass. Back at you. Thanks for listening.